Hello everyone, this is Bobbin Threadbare, and welcome back to The Longest Journey.
Cortez? Cortez! I have a bad feeling about this. Wait, what was the name Cortez told me to remember? Westhouse? Ryan Westhouse? I think that was it. Cortez said to look him up when I wanted to go home. Well, I want to go home now.
Understandable.
Big surprise, I'm still here.
Yeah, but what about the world around you? Interesting murals they've got here.
The shutters are closed, but it's daylight outside.
So it is. Very interesting murals. This one's not finished yet.
Quaint, and they go with the general decor of the place. Oil lamps, or whatever their magical equivalent may be called.
I think you just call them lamps.
He looks like some kind of priest. Enormous satin drapes. The doors are closed. Hello? Hi.
Et tu? Emile, tu vas?
Well, that was expected.
Do you speak English? Parlez-vous français? Habla español?
Aku, sta caen paras. I nomalante candra, ton maris orethesiton.
Well, sounds vaguely romantic, but maybe we should just listen for now.
Aku kandi. Good. Niranton al voce. Sank al coda magic. Torante. Salhe. Naven. All tongue.
Something seems to be happening. Let's keep listening.
Al orta I beginning. Parasimtin you. You have thiesa I magici, Sara. I the knowledge. Aritua I tue by generations e umani. Knowledge of all tongue. Now you have allowed the magic to enter your heart, and the knowledge of all tongue, ever present but dormant, to guide your ears and your tongue.
I understand you. You speak English? Why didn't you just tell me straight away?
No, child. I do not speak English. I speak Naven, all tongue, the common language of Arcadia.
Arcadia? Wait a second. How did I get here? What is this place, and who the hell are you?
Oh, my manners have abandoned me yet again. I'm afraid my preoccupation with ancient texts and the company of my fellow fathers have left me unequipped with the grace of social intercourse.
Meaning what?
That I have been rude. My name, dear child, is Tobias Grensret, and I am the Vestrum of the Sentinel, the Order of the Balance. We are the Fathers.
Okay. I'm April. April Ryan.
I take it this is your first shift, your first passage through the Divide?
I have no idea what you're talking about, but I guess this is my first shift.
Then I will explain everything. Someone must. You are without guidance, without a mentor?
Mentor? There's this guy Cortez. He assisted me, told me about magic and truth and dreams and portals. Crazy stuff. Well, it seemed crazy at the time, although now I don't...
Cortez? Ah, yes, Cortez. Very good, very good. Then come, let us proceed. Let me show you Marcuria, the grandest city of all ages.
Is that white stuff supposed to be his hair or some sort of cap? Honestly, it could be either one. That's a long walk. Welcome to Fantasyland.
Explore Marcuria, April. See the sights, meet the people, and then, when you are ready, return to the temple. I will answer whatever questions you may have then.
Interesting that he wants me to walk around first. I don't know, some sort of deep end of the pool jumping sort of stuff. Yeah, looks like she's, April's still just kind of numb from the transfer. Still not quite sure what to do about all this.
The whole fountain's been carved in one piece from a granite-like material. Very impressive.
You mean granite?
What the hell kind of animal is that?
Alright, let's have a look at the market here. Interesting folks they got here.
In a world without the screen, that's what passes for entertainment. And it's pretty darn good.
If you say so. Oh, crap. Not too much to actually click on here.
My intuition tells me
Maps!
that he sells maps.
Maps, I got maps. Can I interest you in a map, miss? Top-notch, hand-drawn in quality ink by skilled sunwriters. Ain't no better in all the Northlands.
Do you sell maps of the city?
Can't help you there, miss. The Guild of Tourism has monopoly on city maps. I can tell you're not from around here, or you'd know that. Got tons of maps of all the Northlands, though, from the city of Tyrant to the Bay of Fire. Maps!
How much are your maps?
That depends, miss. I got a very nice one here of the Border Mountains for only 6. Aaron's fresh from the quill of a sunrider. Maps, get your maps here.
Where can I find the Guild of Tourism?
They're closed for the holidays.
Sure, that makes sense. Mind if I ask you a couple of questions?
Yes, maps!
Do you know Vestrum Tobias?
Everyone knows Vestrum Tobias, girl. He's been an important part of this city for as long as I can remember.
What can you tell me about him?
The Vestrum is an honorable man, but a conservative one, and I don't know if he still has the best interests of the people at heart. Sometimes I think he worries too much about custom. The Sentinel have been our so-called protectors and keepers of the balance for so long we don't even think of it anymore. But now that the Vanguard are introducing a new way of thinking, new philosophies, I'm afraid the Sentinel will find their power diminish before too long. Their resistance to change will be their downfall. Mark my words, their downfall for certain. And Tobias, honorable man that he is, will be remembered as the captain who went down with his ship.
How do you get along with your neighbors?
The Cup's handler? Stay away from him, miss. He takes great joy in robbing people's purses. You can't beat him, not without magic. And he doesn't allow magic at his table.
How would he know if I did use magic?
Oh, he's got one of those blasted talismans. They're always digging up magical artifacts in Chagagriel. and they sell them to dogs like him for a silver coin or two. Get a proper job, you son of a mole!
What's Arcadia like?
What can I say about a whole world, girl? It's a beautiful place for sure, but we're stuck in the past. We don't look ahead, not like our cousins in Stark. Magic is all well and good, and won't bring our world into the modern age, and Arcadia is untamed. It's wild and unpredictable. Good for the map business, sure, but not so good for productivity and expansion. No, some people may consider our world a paradise. The Sentinel, for one, they'd prefer to keep it just the way it is. Me, I'd like to see some changes, and fast.
Stark is the sci-fi world.
What do you know about Stark?
Land of wonders, strange customs, and machinery. Ah, to be in Stark. I'd give my right leg. Well, perhaps not my right leg as such. You really need two sturdy legs to stand on in this business, or you'll find yourself... yes, a grand place indeed, free of this blasted, chaotic, unpredictable magic. Does no good to anyone. Now, machines built by man, controlled by man, in servitude of man. That's the future, isn't it? Yes, the Vanguard may be a little unorthodox in their methods and teachings, but they're right about one thing. Stark and Arcadia belong together, not apart.
Thanks for your help.
Maps!
No maps for me today, thanks.
Fair enough, miss, but don't expect me to come running to your aid if you ever get lost in Riverwood. Without my maps, you'll probably end up a mole's dinner or worse. Maps!
Yeah, well, the problem with the whole machines in service to man thing is that they aren't. They're in service to a few men at the top. And that's it.
That's a particularly sleazy-looking merchant. I wonder what he's selling. It's a game of some kind.
Cups, perhaps?
What a sorry-looking bird.
Hey, you don't look too polished yourself, lady.
Oops, I didn't know you could talk.
Didn't look as if you could talk either.
I was just chatting with the map merchant.
It's a talking bird.
Right, anyway, let's chat with this guy now.
Want to test your skill and perception with a game of cups? There are prizes to be won!
Mind if I ask you a couple of questions?
Time is money, so make it quick.
What do you know about Vestrum Tobias?
Vestrum Tobias, eh? The High Priest of the Sentinel himself. Did you know they call themselves the Fathers? What a joke. When was the last time they did anything for us, the people? No. They are only interested in sticking with their outdated customs and keeping their secrets under lock. I'm getting more and more inclined to listen to these new people, the Vanguard. Their ideas appeal to me. They may be radical, but we're past due for a change. Only thing I don't wholly approve of is their alliance with the Tyrant. Filthy, dangerous people. But the Vanguard seem to have them under control, so I'm not too worried. I wish they wouldn't allow them into the city, though.
How do you get along with your neighbor?
The maps merchant? We've faced each other for 6 years now, every single day, and he never speaks a word to me except to insult me. Nose high in the sky, calls me a charlatan, as if he's the Guardian himself. You know, good oversized bag of wind?
Do you know anything about Stark?
Not much. I'm not too sure if I even believe in the place. I mean, you hear the stories and you read the books. Well, I don't, but some do. A place where there's no magic, only science? Sounds like a bloody paradise, doesn't it? I mean, with my, skills, I could make a killing in a place like that.
You really couldn't. They got some world-class hustlers over there.
What's Arcadia like?
What a queer question that is. What's the world like? It's big, for one, and too expensive. And they should ban Dalmari women from gambling because I swear, they have a second sight.
Thanks.
Now, how about a game of cups?
What can I win?
Well, there's coin, of course. Double your bet or choose from a wide variety of exotic prizes. Like this antique Domari canter from Gien. A superb replica of Mount Tyranny cast in pure solid iron. A magic walnut from the once glorious island kingdom of Ansiel. And this, unique bird. Get me out of here! Keep your beak shut, you scraggly piece of... And he talks! Great for feasts and for the amusement of infants. He's our top prize, a real keeper.
Yeah, for someone else to keep.
How do I play?
You put your coin down on the table. I put a cup on top of it and shuffled it around with the other two cups. And all you have to do is guess which one hides your coin. And remember, no magic used and none allowed. This amulet right here will light up if you use magic. Then you'll be banned. For life!
Well, I don't exactly have Arcadian money, so...
Sorry, but I'm broke.
May the balance bring coin to your pocket, young lady, so that you may return to me and invest it in a game of cups.
Invest, huh? Alright, let's get out of here. The dancer does not have anything to say. Instead, let's head into the city. Ooh. So this is sort of like how the subway works, where you can click on specific locations, and more of them will appear once we have reasons to go there. And if I'm hesitating, it's because I really like this track. And it sounds like it started repeating there, so...
This guy's selling musical instruments. Most of these I don't even recognize. But he's got a drum in there and what looks like half a guitar and a couple of dried rabbit carcasses. Ugh. He's selling musical instruments. I'm not in the market for an instrument at this particular moment. Still, good to know where to get one in case of a musical emergency. Stout guardians of the city. Wooden, but stout. And that blue fire is way cool. Those guys must be part of the city watch. They look a hell of a lot more intimidating than the Newport cops, despite the lack of an exoskeleton. This lady's selling fresh fish. I've never seen fish like this before. But if it's wet and has fins, fish it is. The walls look ancient. Marcuria must be at least as old as anything back in the real... in my world. This guy's selling lobsters, crabs, eels, and... What the hell is that purple thing? That is so not appetizing.
Pretty sure the Newport cops are more intimidating than those guys. Damn, that's a lot of ships.
The size of these galleons is truly breathtaking. And there are dozens of them, not to mention a number of smaller vessels. Marcuria must be a very important and very busy port. It's a lighthouse, much like the ones we have at home, except this one, of course, burns a blue fire. Blue fire. It's either propane or magic. I'm guessing the latter.
Could be both. Could be magic creating propane.
I wouldn't feel too comfortable about sailing anywhere in that. It's like a toy boat for children. It's a quaint, old-fashioned treasure chest. I wonder if there's anything exciting inside it, like doubloons or whatever they're called. The old man and the, ocean? Looks like a lifetime at sea has left its tracks on him.
Better a lifetime at sea than a day in a dress and a brassiere.
That's an interesting contrast to make.
Hello, old man.
I got me no treasure, and I got me no map of no buried treasure. I just be an old sailor with no ship, so leave us be.
And he's gonna take his time getting that pipe out.
What are you doing?
Mending nets, of course. What'd it look like I be doing?
I'm not well versed in maritime customs.
Mar what? Ah, yous mean sea life, do you not? Ah, the smell of the salty sea, the lapping of waves on your ship, the spray of cold water on your face, plump maidens in every part. Aye, I tell yous, I be having stories about the sea.
Well, shit, that's what this game's all about.
Care to share some of your maritime stories with me?
Mar what? Ah, tales of the sea, right? Sure, sweetie, I be happy to. Now, what stories be I wanted to hear, then?
All of them.
Any tale of your exciting adventures will do.
Aye, I be having plenty of tales to tell. There be the tale of me adventures in the Bakshivan Empire, if you'd be interested. It'd be a tale of grand romance, just up your alley, be sure of it.
Let's do it.
Sure, that sounds like a fine story.
Aye. It be near on 50 years ago that I was a mate on a sturdy old lady called the Three-Legged Whore.
The what?
What do I be saying? She was called the Thrifty Horse, she was. Aye, that be her name. The Whistle What's-It.
You don't remember the ship's name, do you?
Anyways, I be a young mate then, and we be anchored in Monterba, the grand western port of the once glorious Bakshivan Empire. I be having ship leave until the following evening, and it be me first visit to that exotic and dangerous port. So I sets out to have a look around. Now, bear in mind that Monterba be ruled by a mock. Like all large Bakshivan cities. In principle, the mock be having to report to and pay half of all taxes to the Emperor in Port Altaban. But with the Bakshivan Empire having all but crumbled into pieces, the provinces do be having the power to do pretty much as they be wanting. And so I sets out on me own that day to explore the city. Now, bear in mind that all the cities of the Southlands.
Wow. Transition.
And that be me adventures in the once glorious empire of Bakshiva. And that be how I meet me bird. How I seduce and romance the mock's daughter. How I be chased from Monterba by the mock's soldiers. And how I be the first man to walk across the desert of Shangagriel, the wastelands. And how I be getting this awful rash on. Girl, you do not be sleeping, do you?
Man, this story was so long and boring that even the longest journey had to cut it out.
What? What? Sleeping? No. Just concentrating really hard. Good story, though. Solid material. Ever considered doing a book?
Aye, but the agents in Marcuria be bloodthirsty vampires with no thought but to milk your life's blood.
Oh, so they take an outrageous commission, then?
No, they actually be bloodthirsty vampires with a penchant for biting your neck when you ain't be looking.
Huh.
Well, there you go.
I'd love to hear some more maritime stories.
Sure, sweetie, I be happy to. What story you be wanting to hear now?
Let's keep this train running.
Any tale of your exciting...
You want more? Damn be me wooden left ankle. I be having a great old tale to tell yous about how I be coming to have me wooden pecker. It all began...
You know what? On second thought, forget about it.
Ah,
I'd love to hear
sure.
any tale of your
damn.
exciting...
You want more?
You know what?
Ah,
Nothing new.
What have you got in that chest?
what chest?
The one you're sitting on.
Oh, that be no chest, girl. That be me stool. Aye, me stool, carved into the uncanny likeness of a chest.
But what's in it?
No priceless treasure, that be for sure. Nothing at all. It be empty.
No, really. What's in the chest?
Oh, live snakes. Aye, snakes that'll bite your face off before yous have time to jump. Better leave them be, then.
Sure.
I'm still curious about that chest.
Right. I be telling yous. Curse the balance, girl. You never give up, do you? I be having no real treasure in here, like I told ye. But it be where I keep me personal articles and things I be picking up now and then on me travels. And me bed, it's where I be keeping me bed before I be losing him. I be a stupid old man. He be my best friend. I ain't nobody else around to talk to, you see, on account of him being a talking bird.
I think we've met him.
What happened to your talking bird?
I be cheated out of him. Aye, that cups handler on the marketplace be cheating me in a full game of cups, and I be having to give me bird up to try to win me money back.
And what happened?
He be taking me bird when I be choosing the wrong cup. Aye, my best friend taken from me. Cursed be the balance. I be all lonesome now. The worst part is that me bird is now a prize to be won. A prize in the cups game. Beat the handler thrice and you win a prize of your choice, me poor bird.
What's your bird's name?
Bird.
Oh,
It's your own damn fault for betting your friend in a game of cups.
I'd better get going.
Ah, yous young'uns all be always running round. Everything be so important. Yous be having no time to sit down and take a breath. So go. Be not wasting your time here with me.
Dude, I wasted so much time with you just now that I fell asleep. Alright, anyway. Huh. Last place we can visit right now, which is this ship.
Assorted cargo. It's a small ship or boat. I don't know the difference. Is there a difference?
A ship can carry a boat. A boat cannot carry a ship.
Judging by his ungainly stance, I'd say he's a mariner pining for the sea.
Still has his sea legs, you can see.
Ahoy there, matey!
Pardon?
Isn't that how you sailors greet each other?
No.
What do you say then?
Usually, hello. And if it's sunny, nice day for it. We might even try a how are you today then, if we're feeling adventurous. But never, ever, ahoy.
This is valuable information.
Aye, matey, that it be.
Why aren't you out at sea?
Do you see the sail on that barge over there?
Yes?
Is it flapping?
What?
Is it flapping? Is the sail flapping in the wind?
No.
And why is that then?
Because it's not windy?
Exactly.
Well, can't you just use oars or something?
Oh, what an excellent idea. Now, why didn't we think of that? Of course. Oars! By Jaw's stunted left arm, that's it. Why have we been moored to the dock for a month with our merchandise dropping in value when we could have just rowed our way to Gien?
Are you being sarcastic?
Sarcastic? Me? What in Jaw's name makes you think that?
How long's it been since the last wind?
Near a month. Ever since that accursed alchemist put some kind of spell on the wind. The Mojal be cursed if I know why. But it's a bloody catastrophe. I've sent some good people of mine up north to deal with him. But not one has returned. Now the Areed High Council speak of sending an entire army platoon to sort him out. But I'm afraid that just might piss him off.
Who's this alchemist who cast a spell on the wind?
I believe his name is Clax. Roper Clax. Lives in a bloody rock somewhere up north, beyond Riverwood.
Thanks for the chat.
Aye.
He's condescending, but April kind of earned condescending. For today's video, patron Ryan Krause gave me a choice: Starship Troopers the movie, or Starship Troopers the book. But since the movie is in many ways a commentary on the book, I figured I should get right to the heart of the matter and review the 1959 novel written by Robert Heinlein. About the author. Robert Heinlein was born in 1907 in Missouri, and he grew up in what was both a religious and military-oriented family. A family legend was that a Heinlein had fought in every American war since the Revolution, and Robert himself served as an officer of the Navy from 1929 to 1934, his career only ending because he contracted tuberculosis. Despite his conservative upbringing, Heinlein had a very liberal outlook in the 1930s, joining a socialist movement in California and supporting Upton Sinclair, a liberal Democrat, for governor. He himself ran for the state assembly, although he didn't get elected. So instead, he turned to writing to make ends meet, choosing science fiction, probably because there was some overlap between the genre and the utopian idealism of communism and socialism. Anyway, turns out Heinlein had a real knack for writing, and especially for tackling social issues with his stories, and so he became a star of the genre within 3 years of publishing his first short story. In fact, Heinlein was so good and so socially aware that in 1947 he became the first established science fiction author to break out of the pulp ghetto by publishing works in the Saturday Evening Post. He would also expand into movies and youth fiction during the 1950s. And his politics would swing from hard left to hard right, as he divorced his second wife and married his third. Heinlein's second wife, Leslyn, was very intelligent and very liberal, but she was also an alcoholic, and that made their marriage fall apart. His third wife, Virginia, was equally intelligent, if not more so, but between her influence, the messy divorce, and the start of the Cold War, Heinlein started to prefer a brand of libertarian anarchy. Thus, the man who wrote today's novel, Starship Troopers, was also the man who published Stranger in a Strange Land, that Bible of the hippie movement, 2 years later. 2 years later. And this was years after the divorce. And he wrote The Moon is a Harsh Mistress in 1966. Heinlein is considered one of the big three of Golden Age science fiction next to Isaac Asimov and Arthur C. Clarke. While Asimov was about coming up with hypothetical problems and solutions, Heinlein used science fiction to describe societies and events that never existed, and explore what might happen if they did. That's certainly true about today's novel, which Heinlein wrote in a matter of weeks after he heard that the United States would stop testing nuclear weapons in 1958, even though tests resumed in 1961 after the Soviet Union tested Tsar Bomba, the single largest nuclear weapon ever exploded. Starship Troopers would go on to be a big success for Heinlein, and that's despite, or maybe because of, the controversy that sprung up around the book immediately. The book describes a future with a small but effective military composed exclusively of volunteers rather than conscripts, and it was the first book to really explore the idea of power armor, but then there's its politics. Well, I suppose I should just get into that with this story. Starship Troopers is a utopian novel, which means that, like the dystopian novels I've covered, the plot is mostly there as a vehicle to describe the society. So let's just get the story out of the way. The book begins in medias res. Our protagonist and first-person narrator is Juan Johnny Rico, a member of the Mobile Infantry. He and his squad are dropped out of orbit onto an unsuspecting alien city, and thanks to his power armor, his jump jets, his arsenal of weapons that includes a miniature nuclear missile launcher, and the element of surprise, he and his fellow soldiers successfully lay waste to a civilian target in what is explicitly a terror action. Then we jump back to the start of the story. Rico is the son of an influential Filipino businessman, a man who doesn't have the right to vote and doesn't think he needs it. The way to earn the franchise is to join the federal service, and while anyone can join so long as they're at all mentally competent, only some of the jobs involve military service. The rest involve grueling labor on off-world colonies, acting as test subjects for new field equipment, and other dangerous and uncomfortable jobs designed to be at least as difficult as fighting a war. A tour of duty in the federal service is 5 years long, or more if you go career, and after you retire, you get the right to vote. Now, Rico doesn't join just to get the vote. In fact, he joins pretty much on a whim, just to see whether he could cut it in the armed forces. And so, for the first half of the book, Rico goes through his basic and advanced training, a training which is so rough that a handful of people die, and the vast majority either quit or get flunked out for disciplinary or health reasons. Now, those discharged for medical reasons can continue their federal service in a less physically demanding branch, but the rest lose their chance to vote forever. Now let me just stop and note something here. Starship Troopers was written between the Korean and Vietnam Wars. For both wars, the United States relied on conscription to fill the ranks, although we call it the draft. Thus, the very idea that armed forces would be volunteer only, and that they would turn away the majority of volunteers, was very forward-thinking on Heinlein's part. As the novel explains, the modern soldier is very much a specialist who deals with a lot of complicated equipment and needs months of dedicated training, so not just any idiot can hack it. And that's basically what's happened, and why America doesn't use the draft anymore. But let me get back to the story. Once Rico is trained and ready to go, he finds a war waiting for him. The Terran Federation is an expanding stellar empire, and it's recently come into contact with another expanding stellar empire, known only as the Arachnids, or the Bugs if you're in the Mobile Infantry. They get the name because they look like giant demon spiders, but in terms of physiology and society, they're much closer to ants or termites. The only given motivation for the war is that's what happens when expanding empires meet. And so, what started out as border skirmishes erupts into a full-blown war when the Bugs drop an asteroid on Buenos Aires. The Federation responds to this attack with a retaliation on the Arachnid homeworld, Klendathu. However, the battle is foobar from beginning to end. Two transports collide and explode when they jump out of warp. The Mobile Infantry waste their ammo since they can't tell the soldier cast from the harmless workers. The K-9 division suffer massive losses since the genetically engineered Neo-Dogs commit suicide on seeing the Arachnids, and the brain Arachnids that control the hordes of workers and soldiers are all buried deep underground, and they come to no harm. As the war progresses, the Earth armies get experience fighting the Bugs and eventually develop strategies that can destroy the brains and inflict actual casualties. Meanwhile, Rico rises through the ranks of non-commissioned officers and eventually decides to go career and become a lieutenant. Incidentally, this is the only way to join the officer corps. You can't join an academy and start your military career as a junior officer, which is still basically how that works today. Rico also finds out that his father enlisted and became a corporal, mostly because Rico's mother died in the bug attack on Earth. And by the way, the raid on the alien city took place because the humans were trying to get the aliens to join their side of the war. It was basically a warning that they would suffer more if they dared to remain neutral. On Rico's official first drop as lieutenant in training, he and the rest of the mobile infantry are tasked with going down into the bug tunnels to attempt to capture a brain or a reproductive queen. Previously, they would just drop burrowing bombs on the nest, or pump in a nerve gas that kills bugs dead. The operation is a modest success, but Rico gets knocked unconscious by a falling bit of rubble. Nevertheless, he graduates, and is a commissioned officer just in time for a second raid on Klendathu that promises to go a lot smoother than the first one did. And that's how it stands when the book ends. The analysis. I skipped over a lot of world building in my story summary, but that's because I plan on doing so now. But let me begin at the beginning. This book has been accused of depicting what's essentially a fascist government and acting like that's a good thing. Like I said last week, I disagree, but only in the details. However, the details are important. People throw the word fascist around whenever they see someone acting authoritarian, but they aren't synonyms. Fascism is several degrees worse than regular authoritarian regimes, and with actual fascists running around out there, I think it's useful and important to understand exactly what fascism is, so that people can identify exactly who is purveying it. Of course, part of the problem is that different, definitively fascist regimes have had some pretty significant differences between them. So, for a solid definition, I look to Umberto Eco, philosopher, literary critic, author, and a man who grew up in fascist Italy and thus had a very good look at what fascism is and what each fascist party has in common. He described his theory in an article he wrote in 1995 titled Fascism, and I'll be using his 14 points to compare and contrast with the society depicted in Starship Troopers. First is the cult of tradition, a belief that the truth with a capital T has already been revealed, and thus some past society has already discovered the perfect moral system and way of life. More than one society even. In order to gather the most followers, fascists will draw from several sources and create a sort of modern mashup. And they'll claim that this true understanding was hidden until fascist thinkers correctly interpreted it for the first time. This isn't entirely present in Starship Troopers. The big premise is that, at some point, all major civilizations collapsed, autocracies and democracies alike, and veterans were the ones who picked up the pieces. Only veterans can have the right to vote. Even though veterans come in all shapes, sizes, creeds, and philosophies, they somehow managed to create an internally peaceful world government with a limited franchise. Anyone can join the federal service, if he or she is competent enough to take the oath. And that includes pacifists, because you can turn down all the military-related jobs, and instead perform hard, dangerous labor to earn your franchise. The point is that you need to put your life at risk to be able to vote. You don't have to be willing to kill others. And while the military personnel Rico meets refer to past military heroes, this does not necessarily reflect on the government's views. Second is a rejection of modernism. Not of modern technology, but of modern thinking. Of Enlightenment thinking in particular, since that's the birth of pacifism, human rights, and humanism. Now this box the novel does check off. During one of the visits to the history and moral philosophy classroom that grind the story to a halt, the teacher laughs at the idea that humans have an inalienable right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Well, you don't have a right to live if you're drowning in the Pacific Ocean, after all. But that's a straw man argument. Thomas Jefferson wasn't talking about whether natural forces can kill you. He was saying that governments should act like these rights are unalienable, defend them for every citizen, and not abrogate these rights without a very good and thoroughly proven reason. Third is action for action's sake. Don't think, do. Because doing something is always better than doing nothing, even if you're doing the wrong thing. This one is also in the book. It is assumed that the bugs and the Terran Federation will fight instead of coexist because this is how it always goes. We shouldn't even try to come up with a peaceful solution. Then you have the Skinnies, that third alien faction, and the fact that the Federation military seems to assume that assaulting one of their cities is the best way to get them on their side. Fourth is a rejection of criticism. Fascist belief systems are built on toothpicks, and if anyone dares to point that fact out, he or she must be shunned, exiled, or shot. Now, the book doesn't really have any characters who seriously disagree with the system, but in theory, if you disagreed with it, you wouldn't be able to enter the federal service, and thus you wouldn't be able to vote. Fifth is the fear of the other. If your traditions aren't absorbed into the syncretic fascist belief system, or if they were and you disagree with the syncretism, then you are rejected. Thus, fascism is racist by default. In Starship Troopers, Rico meets a lot of people who come from all over the globe and everyone is treated equally, but he and his fellows in mobile infantry have zero respect for any alien species. Sixth, fascism appeals to the frustrated middle class. It preys on the resentment they feel when they can't move up the social ladder, and the fear they feel when they notice the lower classes are becoming as well off as them, or that they're sinking to the lower class level. Either way works. For this, the novel mentions that society was sinking into a mire of depravity, decadence, and entitlement worldwide. Nations fell apart not just because of war, but because their cultures became so rotten from the inside out that there was no hope of salvaging them. Seventh is the obsession with an enemy plot. A properly fascist philosophy is obsessed with an enemy, a secret conspiracy that's insidious, powerful, all-encompassing, and which wants to destroy the proud nation which all good citizens should protect. This is entirely absent from Starship Troopers. The Arachnids are a powerful enemy, but they're completely external and alien. There's no collaboration, no spies to worry about. The home front, while in danger of getting hit by an asteroid, is safe from sabotage. Eighth is the belief that the enemy is weak enough to easily defeat if all good citizens would simply combine their efforts. That is, in fact, at complete odds with Point 7, and this combination is why fascists always have terrible intelligence networks. They have to exaggerate their enemy's strength both up and down at the same time, and the truth always gets lost in the mix. Hence why fascist regimes typically don't last for more than a single generation. This point is also absent from the book. Ninth is life as warfare. It's a belief that life is about struggle and competition rather than cooperation and coexistence. The enemy must be defeated, and we must live our lives to defeat the enemy. Now, this one you can see in Starship Troopers. While the Federal Service includes non-combat and non-military jobs, by every indication we're given, these jobs are considered inferior to the military. You only get stuck digging ditches on a colony because you're too incompetent to do a real job. Civilians are allowed to think otherwise, but then they're not allowed to vote. Number 10. Populist elitism and contempt for the weak. You ever hear the words, "wake up, sheeple"? Because that's a part of fascism. It is more than that, though. Since life is struggle, those who claw their way to the top should be respected and idolized, while those who are stuck at the bottom should be held in contempt, since they clearly weren't strong enough to succeed. Why should we support people like them? They're pathetic, worthless, and if they want to prove otherwise, they should do something about it themselves. And never mind that my father's a millionaire and I have the right ancestors. I am rich, and therefore I deserve to be rich. Now, poverty isn't really touched on in Starship Troopers. As a utopian book, it just assumes that everyone is better off than they were in the present. Point 11 is that everyone should be a hero. Everyone is heroically contributing to the enemy's destruction, and if you aren't, then you are a part of that enemy, and must be heroically resisted. Resist until death. Resist so that you can die heroically and earn a special place in the afterlife. That, or leave behind a tremendous legacy that will have people saying your name with awe. There's a fair amount of that in Starship Troopers, but in fairness, it's mostly because he's in an army in the middle of a war. But at the same time, the only way to become a first-class citizen is to risk your life for the sake of the government. For the 12th point, we have machismo, something that today we would call toxic masculinity. Now, toxic masculinity specifically refers to stereotypically male habits and beliefs that are either dangerous and harmful when taken to extremes, or dangerous and harmful right from the word go. It's stuff like using the word gay like it's an insult, assuming that a woman wants sex with you because she dresses provocatively, assuming that physical strength and being able to beat someone up makes you a better person, and believing that compromise is a sign of weakness and that you have to win every argument because any other outcome means that you lost. Since fascism idolizes fighting, action, and dying heroically, other aspects of toxic masculinity tend to come with it. And yes, you can see this in Starship Troopers. I mean, none of the characters go out and take advantage of women, and there are women in the service, but none of them are in the mobile infantry. Heinlein predicted army professionalism, but not gender integration or equality. Women are better starship pilots, apparently, but there is a lot of machismo to go around at the training camps and when Riku butts heads with his subordinates. There's also a lot of verbal and physical abuse to go around, because obviously a real man wouldn't get discouraged, but would want to prove such insults wrong. Oh, and did I mention yet that this society has brought back corporal and capital punishment at every level? Parents spank or use the strap on their kids, teachers can smack you in class, criminals get lashes in a public square, and that's only when they aren't being publicly hanged instead. Because clearly the fact that the government stopped killing people in public is the reason why society fell apart. And of course that macho defiance of pain and insults thing I mentioned earlier, being at odds with pain as punishment, that never factors into anything. Of course not. 13th, we have selective populism. The people are right, but only if you look at the right people. All those other people, those contemptible sheeple being led around by the nose, they don't deserve to be involved in government. They don't deserve to have the right to vote. Only the people who agree with me should decide what to do, because only they are right. No wonder those weak democracies are falling apart. They keep electing appeasers and liars who let society go right down the drain. Now, this one I don't need to explain. In Starship Troopers, service guarantees citizenship. Finally, we have point number 14. Fascism uses newspeak. Specifically, Eiko is describing how, in the book 1984, one of the government projects is simplifying the official vocabulary so that dissenters won't have the words they need to describe their point of view. Fascists use simple language not just to appeal to the lowest common denominator, but to make sure that all of their supporters become the lowest common denominator. And if a book disagrees, that book gets burned. In Starship Troopers, they explicitly state that free speech still exists, but at the same time, they have what they consider a final form of history and moral philosophy, which is a mandatory class at every high school. And come to think of it, I suppose that does qualify as the cult of tradition, too. So there you go. Point by point, the reasons why Starship Troopers is close to fascism, but not entirely there. It's missing that all-consuming, all-pervading enemy, and it's a bit too liberal with personal freedoms. But, like I've said in previous Let's Plays, restricting the right to vote for any reason leads down a dark path. Power does not go to the people who earn the franchise. Power goes to the people who regulate the tests. Oh, what's that? You want to join the federal service even though you're a pacifist? Oh, that's okay. Oh, whoops, sorry. Looks like we lost your paperwork. Ah, so sorry. But you can't try again until next year. What's that? You came to my training camp even though I hate your family? Well, in that case, I'll make your life a living hell until you either drop out or do something I can discharge you for. Like so many utopian books, Starship Troopers presents a world without corruption. And since corruption exists, and it is not accounted for, it will disfigure Heinlein society beyond recognition. Thanks for joining me again for today's book review, and particularly long analysis, and I hope I'll see you next time for a famous Polish book about a living ocean.